Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Op Watch as CF Montreal prepares themselves to face DC United this Saturday on the road, yet again, at Audi Field. This week, we are joined by Gregory Roche, a pitch pass, to give us a preview of what CF Montreal should expect from this weekend's match. Let's get started. How are we doing today, Gregory?
Very well. It's one of the rare, beautiful days in Washington, D.C., so we're enjoying ourselves.
Oh my God! You know what? In Montreal here, it is
Mhm.
actually nice and warm as well, but kind of weird cold at times. But yeah, man. Anyways, we're excited. We're excited. But before we get into this week's game, can you kind of summarize to the listener how DC United's offseason was leading up to 2025? Um,
Well, go ahead.
kind of a double question here. So, following up on that, what are
Mhm.
the vibes right now in the capital of the U.S.?
Well, it was a tumultuous offseason for DC United as last year, December of 2023, they hired a new GM who then hired a brand new coach. And basically last year, DC United's modus operandi was we are kind of punting on this season because we have a lot of contracts that were signed over the previous regime that we don't want on our books anymore. They don't fit the way that Troy Lesesne, the head coach of DC United, wants to play. So bear with us as we clear the decks and bring in new players. And to their credit, that's what they did. They were competitive most of the year. They didn't get eliminated from the playoffs, I think, until the last weekend, if not the weekend before. And then they immediately started the process of clearing out the roster. There's basically a handful of players who have been on this team multiple seasons, and they got a lot of their work done early. The problem is for DC United fans, this is always a problem. They brought in solid but not spectacular players. No big names. There's no Lionel Messi. There's not even any Gabriel Pecks that are coming in where you're like, this is a young player that they're going to then sell for multi-million dollars. I feel like, and as I was thinking about this, Andy, I was thinking this is very similar to probably what you experience as a Montreal supporter. So it's a lot of it was a lot of out with the old and in with the new, and the new is kind of underwhelming. Not that these players are not good, it's just they're not getting any of the juices flowing if you're a United supporter. So to then answer your vibes question, the vibes for the team, the vibes for the supporters in regards to the team are good, and it's
I like that.
I mean, it's here's the thing, and I don't know if you feel this as a Montreal supporter.
Hmm.
The team is a likable group. They play hard. They give you your best effort. They run their socks off for the crest, and they do all of those things. But it's not exciting because there's not a lot of excitement in the players that are playing, and there's always that cloud of the owner is going to somehow cheap out on this or take a half measure or not put enough money into what needs to happen for them to ascend to another level. So there's a cap on the vibes, but I feel like they're as good as they can be right now because they like the way the team plays, they like how hard the team plays, and I think generally DC United supporters are bought in on what Troy Lesesne wants to accomplish.
That's interesting. Yes, because literally you've described, I think, CF Montreal's last 3 seasons. Good, but
Right.
so there's always the but that keeps holding CF Montreal back, right? And yes, you did mention it's the second year for the head coach, and
Correct.
I will definitely mess up his last name, Troy Lesesne.
Troy
Um,
Lesesne.
Lesine. Okay, so second year. You guys also had during the offseason Theodore Pietro that left.
Correct.
He was a young talent that destroyed Montreal at some point last year at the midfield. Because I was honestly stunned at his performance. And there was one more thing that I heard over the offseason. Tell me if it's true, Gregory, okay? Is it true that season ticket holders received an email that if they didn't make the playoffs, they would be reimbursed a certain percentage? Please tell me I'm crazy.
No, that is absolutely true. And there's another layer to the madness of that. So it's not all season ticket holders. It was if you were a season ticket holder in the past and you canceled your season tickets for the 2025 season, their carrot to lure you back was, hey, if you renew and we don't make the playoffs this year, I think the number was either 30, it was either 15 or 30% of what you paid for your season ticket. Here's the funniest part about it, Andy, and I just found this out this week. Some people did not get that notification. So former ticket holders didn't get that notification until February 14th. And in the notification, it was, if you renew by February 14th, we'll refund your money at the end of the season. So literally, they got this special offer on the day that it expired.
Oh yeah. No. That
So
sounds like a very CF Montreal thing to happen.
as I was trying to get ready to have this conversation, I'm just looking over, and I always thought to myself, DC United supporters are on an island where we just like
Yeah.
nobody
No.
can relate to the things
Welcome.
we go to. But then I'm like, actually, Montreal is the same exact way, where it's just a
Welcome.
lot of this is cool, but well, this is weird, but that's awesome,
Yeah.
except
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's just kind of a big therapeutic group for
yes,
all the pain that
yep,
we've gone through the seasons and all that. But there's still a game to be played. There
yep.
still has to be no, there doesn't have to be a winner or loser,
It
but
doesn't.
everyone is looking for some kind of progress some way, right? So I do want to talk to you about one more thing, and I did mention that how are fans feeling about the Coup di Pietro leaving? He was
Bitter,
I imagine from an outsider's point of view that he was a big piece of the
yeah.
team.
It's bittersweet, and again, it was unexpected because he's a homegrown player. And just a little bit of backstory, he was a homegrown player that was not one of those, this guy's going to be a star homegrown players.
Hmm.
He was always like the third or fourth best player on each academy team as he kind of matriculated through. They didn't offer him a contract. He said, I want to be a pro soccer player. I'm not going to go to college like what you would think an academy player would do. So he actually tried to latch on to the USL championship team, Loudoun United, here in the DC area. At the time, they were owned by DC United, and he tried out for that team and made the team and became one of their better players. To finally, United had to go, we need to sign this kid. So he really just kind of like would not be denied as far as I'm playing for my hometown team. He got rewarded this past season. They signed him to a U22 deal. So we thought, great, this is a kid that we're going to be able to invest in. And then they immediately sell him to Colorado Rapids. Now, the other side of the coin is he's been injured a good amount. It's been difficult when he's on the field, as you alluded to. He's electric when he's on the field, but he's not always on the field, and he's not on the field really enough. And so I think Colorado came along, and with this new deal where you can pay cash for players within
Yeah,
the league now, I think they got an offer, and they thought, you know what, this is if they sold Mattia Cambone, one of their academy stars who played some first team minutes last year for the club and the year before, they sold him to Bournemouth for $1.5 million. Well, they sold Coup di Pietro to Colorado for $1.5 million. It's actually good business when you think of it just as business. But when you bring in all of the feelings and the emotion and what he means to this area, it was hard to take.
yeah, of course, absolutely. And then I just want to ask you one more thing before we get into the game. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the 2024 MLS Golden Boot winner, Christian
Uh-huh.
Benteke, who has
Yeah.
been CF Montreal's worst nightmare since he's joined DC United. We can't stop him. We
Yeah.
cannot stop him, Gregory. And having been with the team since 2022, what are fans expecting from him this season?
Uh Look, would it be saying too much to expect another golden boot? Probably yes, but that's kind of what we are expecting, because at the end of the day, everything flows through Christian Benteke. So,
Yep.
look, he's got 2 goals already through 3 games. He's on his way again. If the kid from the Union cools off once in a while, he'll catch up. But he's jumped out. He's got 6 goals in 3 games. That's really good. I think you should be concerned about Christian Benteke, because he is a guy that, it's so weird because he's different than a lot of the protagonists of clubs, where it's usually the guy underneath the striker who's pulling the strings and creating a Lucho Acosta, Lionel Messi, obviously, those kind of players. He's not that player. He's the guy that needs a lot of service, and you usually think, well, they don't have enough talented players around him, he's not going to get enough service. But United makes such a concerted effort to get him the ball, that it really doesn't even matter that they don't have a really big high-level chance creator, because you can always lump it forward. And I think, as you know, he is not just dominant in the air, he is all-encompassing in the air. I don't know if you've heard the stat, but he had like 3 times the amount of aerial wins last year in the world over the next person on the list. He just wins every ball in the air. He goes up every single time and he wins it. And that creates a lot of danger, and it unsettles defenses, as you know, because he occupies both center backs as one person.
Gregory, I don't have to look at stats. I just have to look at a CF Montreal game and see how he makes all the center backs look like little kids. I
Yep.
mean, I was in practice today, the CF Montreal practice today, and it just, yeah, they're trying really, really hard to get ready for a monster like Christian Benteke, because that's the kind of player he just is. He is just so good in the air, and the
100%.
game seems to come so easily to him around any team, right? So
100%.
um last thing, over the offseason, I know I keep saying last thing. Over the offseason, you guys also got a former CF Montreal player, Rita Zuhir, who has been coming off the bench. He had a lot of issues here, allegedly here in Montreal, where he maybe didn't get along with the coaches. There was a lot of things, but he's always performed well when he's outside of Montreal, in the sense that with other teams he's gone on loans with I want to say Birmingham. I don't remember exactly the names, but he's had a few loans in the USL, and he's performed well because he's out of his hometown. Again, these are just rumors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know you guys have had a very little, probably, I think he's only come in as a sub twice in 2 games. Once. Okay. So,
Yeah.
is there anything you guys are hearing from him? Like, is there any potential? Because he had a lot of potential here. Is there?
And that's kind of what we had heard. Now
Mhm.
so the story of how he ended up on United was he was a trialist. So we like officially didn't know he was actually with the club. They were in Florida for most of preseason. So it was a situation where when they would show the lineup, it would literally say, Christian Benteke, Jared Stroud, trialist number 1. So we didn't even know officially who that was until the local paper covered it, the local news organization. And so when we found out it was Zuhir, it was a kind of run to Wikipedia and go, okay, what's the story with this guy? Where is he coming from? Here's what we do know. And so, like you said, he only appeared in 1 game. It was the Chicago game, and he was only on for maybe 10 minutes total. He got injured at the end of preseason, missed the first game, didn't even dress, and then he didn't get into the game this past week against Sporting KC. Here's what we know. Ali Mackay, the GM, the chief soccer officer for DC United, and Troy Lesane, the head coach, have a player profile that they religiously stick to. And it is kind of a high energy, pressing, work your socks off type of player, especially in the midfield. And so the way United fans are looking at it is Troy definitely has a type. And if he's bringing somebody in, they must be checking a lot of the boxes for that type. So like you asked about the vibes, there's a high level of trust in Troy Lesane. And so even if we don't know Zuhir, Kojima, Jared Stroud last year, it was one of those things where he was right about Stroud. He's been right so far about Kojima. We're going to trust the fact that this player is going to fit into the way that Troy Lesane wants to play. And that's kind of the exciting thing of we want to see him play, because there is a lot of buzz about, this is one of Troy's guys that he really was eyeballing and wanted to bring in.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much. We kind of covered the off season, all the excitement and all that, all the good and the bad. And now we're fast forward to today, right? DC United sits 5th in the East after 2 draws to start the season and a 2-1 victory against Sporting Kansas City. What's your take so far on how the team has performed so far in these 3 matches?
Fine.
Good, but
good, but, and that's the thing. So how are you guys doing so far? You haven't picked up any points yet, or you have a
3
draw?
losses.
3 losses. So again, if we're comparing ourselves, as we probably should, because we're in similar situations, DC United has 3 points in 3 matches. That's pretty good. However, they've played Toronto. That should have been a win at home, and it ended up being a draw. They snatched a draw at the death against Chicago. And they have 5 points, and then they beat Sporting. So these are three teams that you would think to yourself, man, it'd be nice to bank 9 points or at least 7 points so that when the schedule and the really difficult teams start to pull through, we've got those points banked. So I would say fine because we do have 5 points, which is more than Montreal has, but it still feels a little like we've left a point or two, probably 2 points on the table thus far. And for us, not to skip ahead to the next question, but for us, this is a 3-point game because it's Montreal at home. They haven't been home yet, so you assume they've been doing a lot of traveling. They're probably a little road weary at the beginning of the season. They also haven't gelled as a team because we're only 3 matches in, and they don't have any points yet. So you would hope, if United has any hope of making a playoff run of some sort, that they pick up 3 points in this kind of game. But they didn't do it against Toronto, so it's not a guarantee against Montreal.
That's interesting because CF Montreal is, I'm telling you from a fan's perspective, right now they feel like they just need a point.
Right.
So this makes it, we're talking about the 4th game of the season, and we're already talking about something very, very interesting on the 4th game, and this is the 4th road game. So that's a whole different story.
You want to get points off of the teams that are going to be around you, and Montreal and DC are going to be around each other. You would think most of the year, so it's like we need to get the point off of them. Like for you, if you snag a point this weekend, you've done something.
Yeah.
If we get 3 points, we've done something. So that's kind of the setting the scene for what we can expect at Audi Field on Saturday.
Absolutely. And I think in that I don't know which one is better because Gregory, honestly, I can only feel that if you guys, if DC United does get 3 points this weekend, it's going to be like, we needed to do that. That was necessary. It's not one of those things that's going to be like, oh, well, no, it needs to be done. So let's move on to the game. We have your predicted lineup that could change, obviously, depending on the upcoming injury report. Based on these players and formation that DC United is expected to play this weekend, what can CF Montreal expect to see from them this weekend? And sorry, I know I asked you a question. I'm just gonna go ahead and say the lineup. So we have Kim and goalie. Well, the formation is a 4-2-3-1 with Kim and goalie. On the right hand side.
Do you want me to read it off so I don't? Because I know all the names, and whenever I see another team, I'm like, well, how do you pronounce that?
Let's go for it.
So that's we got Kim in net. He is a 21-year-old South Korean international, first year in MLS. He's the only one that is dicey. In the second to the last action of the game against Sporting KC, he took a really, really, really hard knock, was down for like 5 minutes. So we're waiting to see if his shoulder injury is enough to keep him out. But if he's okay, he'll be the starter. David Schnegg at left back, Kai Rolls, who is a new player from Australia by way of Hibs in Scotland. Lucas Bartlett, Aaron Herrera, and then your 2 holding mids will be Kojima and Enau. Your 3 underneath of Benteke will be Peglo, who was a new player this year, who they got from the Polish league, but he is Brazilian, as the graphic shows. Gabriel Pirani, Jared Stroud, and then up top, the man himself, Christian Benteke.
Did I mess up Rawls? Is he Australian? Sorry.
He's Australian, but he's coming to us from Hearts of Midlothian in Scotland.
Okay,
so he's coming from Scotland. He's an Australian international, though.
Tell us a little bit about what to expect out of this lineup, this formation. How have they been playing at DC United?
United play a similar but with wrinkle style to Red Bulls and Philly, which is, and you saw a little taste of with the great Hernan Losada, who we also had as a coach before you guys did. Lasted 1 year with you, lasted 1 year with us. It was fantastic. What a
trauma.
Exactly. So what you can expect is a pressing style, a relentless effort to win the ball back when they turn it over. If you are planning on building out of the back, expect to be pressed very intensely. And that's kind of how United wants to play. They want to force turnovers, and then they want to immediately get forward and hit you. And I wouldn't even call it on the counter. They want to create turnovers in your third and in the middle third. That's where they live and die by as far as trying to win turnovers. So it's not necessarily hang back, absorb pressure, and then hit you on the counter. It's not that at all. It's as soon as your keeper releases on a restart, get all over that guy and then get ahead and let's get into the attack and see if we can hurt you with turnovers.
That's interesting because that does sound like a very CF Montreal style of play, but with a four back. We and Aaron Herrera actually played a wing back
Exactly. Yep.
when he played here in CF Montreal in
And
2023.
he'll play like that with United. They really like to get their fullbacks forward. They are definitely in. There's a stat out now. David Schnegg, who's the left-sided fullback, he has been the most advanced person for the club through the first 3 games. That includes Christian Benteke. So on goal kicks for United restarts, Schnegg will be the highest person, mostly because Benteke will come back to kind of win that header. But Schnegg will play extremely high, and
Okay.
Herrera also will get high.
Okay, very flexible formation. Okay, and just quickly, what are some of maybe the strengths of DC United that CF Montreal should be aware of?
Well, that's Christian Benteke,
Yeah,
which we
okay.
discussed.
That's it.
And that's the problem. Like that's why I kind of huffed, because it's
Yeah.
like we don't really have a lot of strengths. They were horrific last year defensively, and I think that's where you're going to live or die with this game. I'm not going to give the prediction just yet, but they are prone to turn the ball over, and it's prone to be a track meet going the other way. That's how
Okay.
TFC got their point against them in week 1. They get really stretched defensively, and if they turn the ball over and they're not the best passing team, it is a track meet going the other way. And as I said, David Schnegg is the highest guy forward, so he is sprinting back to cover. So that's where you're going to get your chances, Andy,
Okay.
for Montreal. But I think the thing that you can count on, and the thing that United fans love about this team is, doesn't matter if they're in the playoffs, out of the playoffs, the vibes of this team is you are getting 100% effort for the entire match. And there's a huge talent deficiency in this team and in the club, but they all run for the club. They run for the badge. They run for Troy Lesesne. And so that's the thing. Other than Benteke, it's not going to be, hey, they're also great at this. They're not really great at anything other than getting the ball into Christian Benteke, except they never stop attack, or they never stop pressing.
That's interesting because that's something that CF Montreal has gotten a lot of in trouble with, because there seemed to be a lack of effort in the first 3 weeks. We'll see if that turns around this weekend.
You will get
And
burned. You will get burned if that does not happen. And
we've seen it.
most
Yeah.
clubs, especially 10 minutes against United, especially at home, are on the back foot for the first 15 minutes of a match because they come out so intensely. So
Yeah.
if Montreal come out thinking we're going to grow into this game, they're going to find themselves down 1-0 pretty quickly.
Interesting. And quickly again, what weaknesses do you think CF Montreal can exploit?
Lack of talent. That's obviously number 1. You're not stopping Benteke, but here's the problem. If Benteke is dropping to win headers, who is actually the next person that he's flicking on to? They're hoping it's João Pedro, who looked good in his first match last week against Sporting. They're hoping it's Jared Stroud, but you don't know those names because they're not really names that you would go, well, let's stop Benteke. Or
Yeah.
if we stop Benteke, that guy's going to burn us. There's nobody's thinking that. So that's a weakness. It's a lot of it is centered on one guy. The other thing is what I mentioned. They're not the most efficient passers, and so they are very prone to wayward passes, and then they're very prone to getting stretched defensively. And that's the thing as United fans that we are always going, if the passes are wayward, we're in trouble.
Yeah. And now I have one question here, because I know it's kind of an obvious question. So who's the player to watch? Obviously, we're going to say Benteke,
Benteke.
as you mentioned over and over again, and rightfully so. But if we put Benteke to the side, is there a player that's the DC United fans, or anybody is should be on the lookout for?
Well, so I thought of this answer with Benteke, and then I was like, I don't want to say Benteke, but he might want me to just say Benteke. I'm glad that you were like, other than Benteke. Everybody knows we got to
It's
watch out for
boring.
Benteke. Jose Kojima. He is a Japanese. He is Japanese. He's not a Japanese international. Went to Wake Forest, was drafted by St. Louis, and they acquired him this year, and he is immediately gone in the starting lineup. He is how Troy Lesesne wants to play. He is in your socks, in your boots, the second you get on the ball. He epitomizes what style this club wants to play. He has played all 3 matches so far. He's been very fun to watch. He's not as great on the ball as we were hoping, but defensively, he just never gives you a second to breathe. Got himself a goal, the game winner against Sporting this past weekend, and he's a guy that we're excited about in a way that it's once they surround the Benteke with other high quality players, the Kojimas of the world are going to be the one that's going to be carrying the lunch pail and doing the dirty work. And so he's an exciting player. And then quickly, and I won't give him the backstory on this, João Peglo was the new acquisition. He was injured the first 2 matches. He played 77 minutes last week against Sporting, and he was really exciting, and he was really lively in attack. So if he can become somebody that you can rely on as well, that takes a lot of pressure off of Benteke and gives somebody else, gives other clubs somebody else that they're going to have to focus on. But it's too early to say yet. So I'm going to give you Kojima as the player to watch.
All right. Last one. What's your score prediction?
I think this is going to be a win for United. For all the reasons we just mentioned, especially because it's at home. I want to say 3-0, but I'm not going to say 3-0 because I think Montreal is going to get one of those track meets going the other way on a bad turnover, and Herrera and Schneider at the halfway line when they turn it over. So I'm going to go 3-1 United. I think it'll be disappointing if they get anything else other than 3 points.
Okay. And now I have a little question that's a little bit out of DC United. What is
because there's one thing I was going to mention before we were done. So let's see if we're on the same page. What do you got?
I wanted to ask you, what's the best for our listeners, right? Because some of them are actually visiting Washington this weekend. What is the best spot to eat in town?
Well, that's really difficult because, not to glaze you up or anything, but Montreal is one of the best cities in the world. And
yes,
yes, it is. As I tell everybody who is like, oh, I want to go on vacation, I always say you should go to Montreal because it's the largest French-speaking city in the world outside of Paris. So you do feel like you're plopped into Europe without actually having to schlep over the pond to Europe. And I always love going to Montreal because it's such a diverse and cultural, and it's just a great city. DC is very, very, very similar in the sense of it's not like, hey, we're going to Kansas City, make sure you get some barbecue. It's not that because it's such a melting pot. We've got all of the embassies here. So there's just every culture in the world is represented here. There's a lot of great Ethiopian restaurants. So if you're into Ethiopian food, that's great. But also we've got great Thai food here. We've got great Brazilian food here. It's a great area to live.
Rephrase that word. Gregory, you're hungry, you're starving.
Okay.
Where do you go? What's your spot? First one that comes to mind. Like that. Don't even think about it.
I go to Shake Shack, which is a chain place. So it's ridiculous. But here it is. Here's the answer for anybody just coming and going. I want to do something DC. You go to Ben's Chili Bowl.
Okay.
That's on U Street in the district. It is they're called half smokes. So they're basically sausages done in a DC centric way. And so it's where tourists go, but it's not touristy because it's in a real neighborhood that's got a cool vibe, and it's a distinctly DC meal, and it's comfort food. So you can grab it, they'll put it in a little tray for you, and you can walk out and just walk down the street and eat it. Ben's Chili Bowl is the place that I would mention.
All right, now you got me hungry, and I'm definitely gonna write that spot down. All right, Gregory, thank you so much for joining.
I have one thing I want to throw by you, Andy.
Yes.
And I don't want to get into the political aspect of it, but we have had TFC in town already at Audi Field. For us, that means we get both anthems when we have the Canadian teams in town. Okay. So we've had TFC in, and I will tell you, for anybody who may be making the trek to DC and to Audi Field, to not judge DC United fans, Washington, D.C., and the American thing in general by what's going on between our two great countries right now. And I will tell you that when they played the anthem, the Canadian anthem, at Audi Field on opening night, a smattering of boos were immediately overwhelmed by cheers and the stadium coming together and singing the last 4 lines of "O Canada" together. So I just wanted to throw it out there that I know if I were going to Canada right now, I'd be like, oh, I'm an American. I hope people don't crap all over me.
Yeah,
If you're thinking that coming to specifically Audi Field on Saturday, there's a lot of good vibes between the Canadian fans of football and soccer and the American fans and DC United fans of football and soccer. So we're going to welcome you on Saturday at Audi Field. I will be there, and you will feel a very welcoming environment, unless you pop off about CF Montreal, and then we'll see on.
Yeah, no, thank you, Gregory. Obviously, a very touchy subject,
Yeah.
and just there's a lot of
It's
opinions
hard
all
to talk
around that.
about, and that's why I was like, I don't want to
Yeah,
get into it. I just want you to know
yeah.
that
No, I get it.
we're gonna sing the anthems together, and we're gonna cheer for Canada as wholeheartedly as we ever have.
Awesome. All right, Gregory. Again, thank you so much for joining the Ball is Round in this edition of Op Watch. Where can our listeners find you for everything DC United?
Yeah, so I do a podcast as well. It's called Pitch Pass. Pitchpass.com is where you can find me, find all the episodes. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm transitioning out of X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm on X at Pitch Pass, but I'm also on Blue Sky, and that's where I really do my, hey, this is what's going on, my game commentaries and everything like that. That's at Gregory Roche if you want to follow me on Blue Sky. But those are the big places, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, including this one.
Thank you, Gregory, and may the best team win this weekend.
Thank you, Andy. And when we have the return leg, I'm hoping that
Yes.
I get the invite to come back and
Yes.
maybe come into the house at Saputo Stadium.
Why not? All right then. Well, we'll see each other. We'll see each other next time then. All right.